I'm back. I missed you guys. Missed you bad. And it was good to see some of you at AVICC. So it was neat to see some of you face to face. So it's great.
We're saying it was great to see you too. They were just the microphones weren't on, Ron. Okay, well, it's good to see all of you, and it is 1:30, and so we'll proceed. And I'd like to call this meeting to order and recognize that we are meeting on primarily on the territories of the Tishat and Hupetchesett First Nation, and that we honor and recognize that. And we are, I would give notice that attendees and delegates that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed to YouTube on the Regional District website. And I'll introduce the members that are here in the room. First of all, we have Cal Roberts, and then we have myself, Vice Chair John McNabb, and we have Cindy Solda for the City of Port Alberni, and we have just went brain dead. Penny Cote from Sproat Lake. That was me. And Penny Cote from Sproat Lake. And then we have everybody online. Nice to see you all. And so I'd ask for approval of agenda, please. And we have a mover and a seconder, Director Roberts and Director Solda, and everybody else. And all in favor? Looks like that's carried. And declarations. Anybody have conflict of interest or gifts exceeding $250 in value as per section 106 of the community charter? And Director Bodner has, somebody gave her like a bus. No?
No, I have to excuse myself from 9B and 9C under planning matters.
Alrighty, we'll take note of that. Thank you very much. And then we have minutes for adoption. First of all was the West. Oops, sorry. We got, oh, yes. Forgot about you.
I also have to excuse myself for 9B.
Okay, and then we have Director Shannon as well.
Thank you. I need to excuse myself from 9.1A.
Okay, so that's not going to cause a problem, any of that, is it? We have enough for quorum and all that. So, okay, I appreciate that. Thanks for bringing that forward. And I don't know why I didn't see that here. That's funny. There's a bell up there. Okay, so now we have adoption of minutes. West Coast Committee meeting minute of April 13th, 2022. I would move adoption, please.
So moved.
Director Cote and Director Roberts. Any errors or omissions in all of that? Certainly, I don't know. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Carried. Board of Directors meeting April 13th, 2022. Oops, let me move adoption. Director Beckett and Director Cole. And any errors or omissions on that? Nope, everybody's happy. All in favor? Everybody's in favor. Moving right along. Man, we'll have this many meeting finished like in 15 minutes. At this pace. Committee of the
And
whole.
I'll tell you, that was a bad luck statement. Holy cow.
Committee of the whole meeting April 20, 2022. Motion to it. And that's Director Shannon and Director Cote. Any errors or omissions in that? All in favor? Carried. Now, petitions and delegations and presentations. We have none of those today, very sorry to say. And we have correspondence for action. The Coastal Community Network request for membership, the fee of $500 for 2021. So, Terry, would you like to handle that? Wherever you are.
Sure, it's just for the board's consideration. We do have budget room if you would continue to be supportive of this organization. We can make it work in general government. They hadn't charged anything last year because of COVID and it being inactive. So we just brought it forward as we haven't had this discussion with the board for the past couple of years.
So, yes, Director Cote.
Thank you. That's right. We haven't really had much to do with the Coastal Community Network in the last couple of years, but we have been big advocates in the past. There's a long history of us supporting this. The chair was part of our board in the past, and I'd like to make the motion that we request renew our membership for the fee of $500 for 2022. Thank you.
Yes, Director Roberts, you second?
Second, thank you.
Anybody else like to speak to that? Seeing none, all in favor? Anybody opposed? All right, carried. Moving along, correspondence for information. Anybody want to pull something out of that? Oh, Bob, go ahead, Director Beckett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would, sorry, let me just get this back up and running if I can. Oh, it's frozen. Help me out here. It's the item on the Bamfield sewage. I don't know why I'm locked up here. Hang on a second.
7B grant application.
Bamfield Liquid Management Plan. Yes. The reason I'd like to pull that out is that it's a conditional grant subject to us receiving some additional information to be signed and returned to the ministry. I just want to confirm that that is the intent of staff to do that in order to secure the $10,000. Thank you, sir. Sorry for that. Awkward.
So in short, they want information sent down the pipeline.
That's correct.
Okay. Nope, Terry, are you?
Yeah, I was just going to say that just thought we'd advise the board that we were successful in this grant, and then they will send all the paperwork and we'll make sure it gets signed and sent back in. And we had already committed some community works funds to this project, but it's great to get that extra 10,000 from them as well to give us a helping hand with that. So happy to see both those grants come through.
All righty. Anything else there, Director Cote?
Thank you. So it would be item C. International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia is May 17th. And I'm just wondering, do we, there's information here about a flag. Do we fly flags at the regional district? I know that the city of Port Alberni does and other areas, but I don't know if we do here.
I do believe we have flags on the other side of the building. And so unless Wendy corrects me, but my understanding is that that's where they are. We don't specifically have flagpoles like Port Alberni does, but we do mount to the side of the building. Wendy will comment on that.
Hi. Yes. No. We do not have flags on the outside of our building, similar to the city of Port Alberni. We just have the ones in our boardroom.
Director Cole and then Director Zoller.
We just visited the topic of flags for the purpose of acknowledging and embracing 7C at our district meeting last night. And because we don't have a lot of options without removing other flags in community, we went to looking at having a last minute sourcing out of banners, because we have quite a lot of posts throughout town that have artist banners that we changed throughout the years, and that we were looking at maybe that being an option to fly some pride.
Yes.
If I can add to that, we also as staff, almost all staff now have gone through the inclusivity training, the LGBTQ plus training, and we are working on certification as a safe place. And so when we are certified, then our building will be marked off as well. And so on our front door, all our access doors, we have, I believe there's a specific logo that we get for being an inclusive, safe space. So working on that. It'd be great if we could have it by May 17th, actually.
Yeah, good work. Okay, I've got Director Solda and Director Becca.
Just to let you know, the city will be flying the flag for this day.
Director Beckett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Speaking of flagpoles, the fact that we don't have a flagpole outside doesn't allow us to fly any flags, including, you know, the Canadian flag. And it's something that I would like our board to consider, yeah, at some point in time.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been our history to make commemorative weeks and months, and we've had these requests many times before. I think it's really more important that you walk the walk and that you respect and honor other people on a daily basis versus a dedicated day or a dedicated week. But nevertheless, the world goes forward on these items, and we may have to change our policy to do that, and that'll be a discussion for another day. Anything else on the incoming correspondence? Director Cote?
Thank you. Could I make a request in that staff investigate the cost of putting in a flagpole or flagpoles so that we could fly at least the Canadian flag? That's a motion.
And I'll second that.
That'd be good.
We just need to carry the resolution.
Yeah, sure. We need a seconder for that.
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you? Oh, I didn't see that.
I-
It's busy up here. Trust me. Okay, on the motion to have staff investigate putting a commemorative flagpole, at least to fly the Canadian flag out. Any other discussion on that? Solder.
I turned it.
Yeah, Director Polson.
We'll answer if anything.
She's Director Polson to that.
So having one flagpole, you might want to investigate too, because you have First Nations involved in this whole aspect too. So where do you go with that? You know, so I would look into that too.
Sure.
So I will come back with a report on costs for poles, but also I would say we'll add it also to our discussion around this building's renovation when we look at doing it, because we do have a great opportunity. I thought there were flags on the other side there. So there's an opportunity. There's a whole wall there where we could mount a number of different flags. So not only poles, but on the building. So we'll cost that out, come back with some options for the board, and then we can either decide to proceed or to marry it all into a bigger renovation on this building.
Alrighty then. So we have a motion on the floor. The real Director Polson.
Yeah, just concurring with Cindy. Well, from going back to my days at the Harbor Key with masthead down there with regards to flag protocol and stuff, but if you're just going to fly the Canadian flag, one pole will do. I just wanted to, is it too late for me to talk about the actual date, May 17th? And I'm totally for recognizing special interest groups. This group has asked for dedication on May the 17th. I want to remind everybody that June 1st to June 26th is Gay Pride Month. So you're actually duplicating service here. The Gay Pride Month is to honor the 1969 Stonewall riots, and it works to achieve equal justice. It just seems a little strange to me that this request would be made outside of Pride Month, which is in June. But I don't have a problem with recognizing it on May 17th as well.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, sorry.
To investigate the flag and flying situation. So any other comments on that? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Looks like everybody's in favor. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so now we need to move the board to receive the items A to E. Can somebody do that? So moved, Director Roberts, and seconded by Director Beckett. All in favor? Looks like everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, request for decision, West Coast Recycling Depot public concerns on hour reductions. Now, I don't know who's going to do this, but I don't see Jenny. Oh, she's there. Oh, well, she became a picture. Before she was just a J.
I can speak to that. Thank you, Chair. So this item is from the West Coast Committee. We were looking at the concerns that we received around the changes at the recycling depots. The recycling depots were previously operated by contract from to Sonbird, and recently that changed over to a new company, Ozard Environmental. And with that, there's been some changes to hours of operation and switching the Ucluelet depot to a satellite depot. So there's been concerns from the public with that reduction, that it would result in a reduction of materials being diverted. From the regional district perspective, the operation of those depots is directly from Recycle BC to the private operator. And one thing that we've recommended is that we send a letter expressing the concerns that we've heard from the regional district to Recycle BC and encourage them to look at potential solutions for that as a first step. And working with the operator and with Recycle BC to see if we can continue to work on a situation and a solution that will best meet the community needs. So we have drafted a letter for the board to consider sending to Recycle BC, which outlines some of those concerns. And we are requesting that the board direct staff to send the letter.
Okay, any questions or comments on that? Dr. Steer?
Yeah, if there was no questions, I was just going to read the recommendation.
Work on that. That's good.
Thank you. That the West Coast Recycling Depot, that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors direct staff to send a letter to Recycle BC expressing concerns over the reduction of hours and services at the recycling depot in Ucluelet and Tofino.
And a seconder, Director Roberts. Any more discussion on that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just Jenny, when she had given our presentation at the West Coast Committee, it was one of the issues that came up was that Recycle BC was not aware that there was a problem because they were not receiving any complaints. So at council meeting here last night during the ACRD update, I did mention that we should put that information on our Tofino website so that citizens knew where to direct those complaints to. And because I've had about half a dozen of them at my place of work requesting that. So that was very helpful. Thank you. And that has gone forward.
I just note that Director Jack has come to the meeting for the secretary. Okay, so any other discussion on this item? Okay, so we have a motion before us. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Carried. Cruising along here. Request for decision, Salmon Beach Road Maintenance Equipment Material Labor Supply. So who wants to take this down the road?
I can speak to that as well, Chair. So this is for the Salmon Beach community roads, the internal road network. We have a contract that has expired for the service of those, and we need to go out to get competitive pricing. So as per our purchasing policy, normally we'd do this as an RFP or a tender process. Because it is not a very complicated or detailed, the work that needs to be done is fixed. We feel that a request for quotation, which is a much more simplified process, would be most appropriate. And then we can have our local companies that would be best suited to do this. We'll have the easiest process, and it'll still meet our needs to get competitive pricing. But in order to fulfill our purchasing policy requirements, we need a resolution from the board in order to do this alteration.
Okay. Director Roberts?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the time and effort put into this, through the chair. And the recommendation of the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District ACRD Board of Directors exempt the procurement of the Salmon Beach Road maintenance equipment, material, and labor supply services from the ACRD's purchasing policy request for proposal process. And further, that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District ACRD Board of Directors authorize staff to undertake a request for quotation RFQ process for the procurement of the Salmon Beach Road maintenance equipment, material, and labor supply services, and delegate authority to the Chief Administrative Officer, CAO, to negotiate and authorize a contract with a term length of 1 to 3 years.
With a seconder? Director Sullivan? Okay, so any other comments on that? Director Roberts?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I understand the process, request for quotation as opposed to an RFP. And I don't know how long it's going to take staff to do this, but having been out there recently and going to be going out for the long weekend in May, I hope the roads are fixed or there's some grading being done at that point, but do appreciate the requirements. And thank you. Thank you for that.
Okay, so anybody else on this subject? Do have a mover and a seconder, so on the motion, all in favor? Okay, anybody opposed? No, all carried. And back to that area of the world again, request for decisions on bylaw F1144-1, amendment of Millstream Water Local Services Area Rates and Regulations bylaw. So back to Jenny.
Last one today. Yes, so we are looking at the Millstream water system. We took this to the West Coast Committee. As we've been doing with all of our infrastructure, we completed an asset management plan, which identified a funding gap between how much money we are putting away to cover both the cost of operation, but also the replacement of the assets for the water system in Millstream. We had an excellent discussion about what would be an appropriate rate. Staff had originally recommended an increase from $260 per quarter to $310 per quarter. And it was discussed and it was decided that a more gradual rate increase would be appropriate. And so staff have prepared a bylaw based on that recommendation and are looking for resolution. And I just missed the rate. That will raise it by $50 to $260 per quarter. And we will look at continuing to adjust those to hopefully get up to as much as we can fix the funding gap that's there. So we're requesting that the board consider adoption of the bylaw, which will allow us to adjust the rates.
So just a question, does this area covered by DCCs?
Well, it's interesting. It's actually, there's a very small group of water connections. There's 50 water connections, and there is basically no potential for any development within that service area. So we don't even have a DCC bylaw because there's no opportunity. Unless we extend the boundaries of that water system, we can't increase.
Alrighty. Okay, I guess Director Roberts.
Yeah, just another question. I read through the report and we talked about the parcel tax. What's the potential for doing that as an increase, as opposed to where in that case that people could actually apply to exclude it from your taxes?
Yes, because we don't have meters and it is a fixed rate, it's similar, except in the fact of what you've mentioned, which is that, and Terry can jump in on parcel taxes more if she wanted to. Parcel taxes can be deferred to your property tax, which then you could defer payment. We can consider that as an option for continuing. We could consider it for this increase as well, but we feel that it does make sense to make a small increase in the water rates, and then for future we could look at parcel taxes to cover the difference, because if we feel that maybe the increase is so much that it people can't afford it at all and need to defer to taxes and potentially defer paying until the sale of a house, then that is an option for sure.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, Director Roberts, are you moving the motion?
Yes, I will. Recommendation that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors give first reading to bylaw F1144-1 Millstream Water Local Service Area Rates and Regulations Amendment 2022.
Seconder, Director Cote. Any other questions on this? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Carried. Yeah. And I think we can just do second and third.
Sure, second.
Okay, seconder, Director Cote. Any further on that? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Carried.
Third reading.
And Director Cote, second. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Carried. And
Finally, that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors adopt bylaw number F1144-1 Millstream Water Local Service Rates and Regulations Amendment for 2022.
second, Director Director Solden. Tricked me. Anything else on this? All in favor? Anybody opposed? That's carried.
Have
Okay.
another comment.
Sure.
That I'd like to see from staff is in a plan moving forward that we could in fact look at the parcel tax, which would certainly benefit the ratepayers out in Millstream. Thank you.
Okay, so now we have planning matters for electoral areas only. We hope that the others will stay with us for majority of a quorum. And we have Director Shannon leaving our midst temporarily. Oops, that was her leaving. There, we think that Director Shannon is no longer with us. Okay, so who is taking this? Mike? Yeah, somebody.
I'd be happy to, Chair. Thank you. So the first application we have before you is a temporary use permit TUP 21005, which applies to a property located at 8865 Beaver Creek Road in the Beaufort area. The application would allow for the use of an existing 2-bedroom home on the farm property to be operated as a short-term rental unit. The use complies with the Agricultural Land Commission's agritourism accommodation policy and is generally supported by the policies in the Beaufort Official Community Plan. The application has been considered by the Beaufort Advisory Planning Commission, who met last week on it and passed a motion of support for the application. At this point, planning staff recommend that the board consider the TUP and proceed with the neighbor notification process. We're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions? Director Cote had her hand up first.
Thank you. So on page 61, there's around the zoning, it talks about agritourism accommodation, which at the end would not require the issuance of a TUP. So can you explain that, please?
Sure, I can expand on that. So within the draft of the proposed updated zoning bylaw, we've included agritourism accommodation as a permitted use in the rural zones, provided that you meet the requirements of the ALC policy. And those requirements are laid out on page 60 there, where they will require that a farm is classified as a farm under the Assessment Act, so it has registered farm status. The total developed area shall be less than 5% of the lot, and the accommodation is limited to 10 sleeping units in total. So what we've done with the proposed bylaw, the proposed zoning bylaw, is that we've actually included that in the zoning already, so that if somebody were to meet all of those ALC policy requirements, they would have the ability to do the accommodation use without needing to apply for the temporary use permit.
Thank you. Just to follow up. So is this going to be something similar to how we will work with the other temporary use permit, short-term vacation rentals? Because we've just surpassed the 3 years on one of the applications, and they're into their second 3-year. So I'm just wondering how we'll deal with this in the future. Will it be similar to this within our zoning? Thanks.
Appreciate that comment. And you know, we're still working on a plan on how to deal with the short-term rentals as a whole. As you know, and as the board's aware, we have been renewing the first round of applications on that, and we will be reaching a point within the next 2 to 3 years that you know, the renewals will be expiring. This will the agritourism accommodations section will deal specifically with farm properties and won't have an impact on a lot of the short-term rental applications that we see at Sprout Lake and on the West Coast. But we are working on a plan to deal with short-term rentals, and we hope to have something back to you in the near future after the completion of the zoning bylaw review project. Hope that helps.
Director Roberts.
Yeah, thank you for that, Alex. Yeah, I'm happy to see that that we're moving ahead with agri-tourism accommodation, and as it falls under the ALR use regulations, I'm happy to support this. It's been some time before this has come forward, so I'm happy to see this as an initial process recommendation. So I'd recommend that the Board of Directors consider issuing temporary use permit PUP 21005, subject to neighboring properties being notified as per the Local Government Act S494.
Seconder? Director Cote. So I'm just wondering about that notification. Typically that notification is 100 meters or some other thing like that. How's this expected in rural areas like this?
Absolutely. It is a 100-meter notification buffer from the boundaries of the property. So this being an 85-acre property, it will encompass a lot of area, obviously, but mostly the properties on the west side of Bain Road, the north side of Bryson, and then the farm properties to the south and east. But we will work on that if the board proceeds with the neighbor notification process.
Director Cote.
Thank you. So we're issuing a temporary use permit, and this is to tide over until the new zoning comes into play, or will there have to be another application made after the new zoning is adopted?
There would not need to be a new application. The wording of the TUP right now is that it's issued for a period of up to 3 years. Within that time, if the zoning bylaw if the updated zoning bylaw is adopted as currently worded, then that would be considered a permitted use, and they wouldn't need to apply to renew after the 3-year period. So it does effectively bridge the gap between now and the completion of the zoning bylaw review project.
Can I just ask one question? Is the intent of that to be on ALR only or on agricultural use land as well?
That's correct. It's currently worded within the ALR only. So within the ALR and complying with the Agricultural Land Commission's policy on agritourism accommodation.
Okay, Director Cote.
Thank you. This is for short-term vacation only. I just have a few concerns about it not being having the same kind of options that the temporary use permit has for short-term vacation rentals. Just because you have a big farm doesn't mean that there can't be disturbances come. I'm quite assured that this property will be well managed and kept going the way that it is. But looking at the Lower Mainland and other areas about what's happened in the ALR, where accommodations have been put in place, and they're like hotels. So just I have some questions. I'll talk about that later when we're talking about the zoning. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just to clarify for everybody, the way the Agricultural Land Commission policy works is it's only properties that have farm status. So you have to maintain a certain level of income and apply to BC assessment to be classified as a farm. And our zoning bylaw, if it's adopted, the new bylaw mirrors that regulation. So it's not every property in the agricultural land reserve. It would only apply to those properties in the agricultural land reserve that also have farm status. So, and the idea is that this is a way to supplement farm income. So hopefully that clarifies some of the questions the directors have had.
All righty. Anybody else? Seeing none, we have a motion in front of us that we moved and seconded. All in favor? And anybody opposed? The motion is carried. Somebody like to, whoops, yeah, we're good there. Somebody like to invite Director Shannon in, and we'll have, who was moving out for this one? That was Director Rodner and Director Cote. So we don't have to worry about we're still okay with a quorum of rural directors, or we do just need a general quorum anyhow? Okay, okay. All righty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this next application, are we good to go here?
Director
Okay.
Shannon, yes, there you are.
Awesome. This next application is a rezoning application for the property known as Beauty Island within Great Central Lake in the Sprout Lake electoral area. The intent of the rezoning is to create a site-specific zone that would allow for a 3-lot subdivision proposal to move forward. There is also no CP amendment bylaw associated with this application to support the new site-specific zone. The bylaws received second and third readings on November 24th, following a public hearing held earlier that month. There were a number of conditions of rezoning approval that were applied by the board when they considered it for first reading, and the applicants have been working through those requirements since that time. They're highlighted for you in the report, but this generally included support from the First Nations, confirmation of suitable parking facilities, bringing the docks into compliance with provincial regulations, and providing assurance that the uninhabited cabin would be brought forward into compliance with the building code. So in staff's opinion, the applicants have now satisfied all of the conditions of rezoning approval as outlined in detail in the report, and staff recommend that the board proceed with adoption of the bylaws. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we get a motion on this and then we'll go from there. Do we want to move it? Don't everybody jump. You know, the rural directors narrows it down a little. Okay, so Director Shannon. You're muted.
Muted. I was gonna say, do you want me to read it out? But I'm just finding the. Okay, I would move that bylaw P1405 Sprout Lake official. Oh, am I on the wrong one? Okay, Sprout Lake official community plan amendment bylaw be adopted.
Got a seconder? Director Roberts. Now we're moving along. Okay, so any further on this? Any questions? All in favor? Rural directors? Anybody opposed? Carry. Next motion. Director Shannon.
That bylaw P1406 regional district of Alberni Clayoquot zoning text and Atlas amendment bylaw be adopted.
Seconder, Director Roberts. Okay, so anything further on that motion? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Carry. Alrighty, so now we can get those folks back in the room somehow.
Oh, and the other one's in line. Hey, yes, thank you. I used to Zoom.
She is. Yeah, Penny's outside, not just missing in action on a computer screen.
So, Chair McNabb. for
Diane
this
was in
one, we-
contact for this one.
Yeah.
Did somebody bring Diane back?
No, Diane will not be back for this one, but
Oh,
Director
oh,
Cote
yeah,
needs to be
Diane.
back for this one.
Is Diane missing on C as well?
Yes.
Oh, okay, sorry, didn't know that.
That's
Okay,
okay.
so now we're on to RD 21005, Mike.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll speak to this one, Mr. Chair. So this is lot 45, District Lot 622 on Taylor Arm Drive. So the property owner is applying to rezone a 3.2 hectare portion of the overall 37.8 hectare area of the property. So just a portion on the west end of the property. The public hearing was held on March 9th, and then following the public hearing, there were some conditions and discussions around a covenant to limit the number of lots to 5, and the covenant would also provide the option for the ACRD to take some parkland, but not required to take the parkland. So all the conditions have been met, and staff recommend that the board adopt this bylaw, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Are you planning on moving that or not?
Sure, I just wondered if there was any questions. This was another controversial application, but through conversations with the community, I am ready to, at this point, to adopt, to make the recommendation that bylaw P1430 Regional District of Alberni Clayoquot Zoning Atlas Amendment bylaw be adopted.
The second, Director Roberts. Okay, so any discussion on this? Alrighty. Everybody happy? All in favor? Any directorial directors opposed? Carried. Yes.
Thank you. So the parkland and the subdivision, that all happens at a future meeting, and that will be when parkland is dedicated.
Yes, Director Cote. So if and when the applicant applies for subdivision, there will be a parkland requirement, and that will come to back to the Spurlock Lake Advisory Planning Commission, the Spurlock Lake Parks Commission, as well as the board for a decision on how that parkland would be laid out or potentially cash in lieu.
Director Roberts, you got a question?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, to Mr. Is there an opportunity for this proponent to pay cash in lieu, or because of the size of the property, they have to be dedicated parkland?
So there is the opportunity, if that's something, a direction the board wishes to go. With this property, the option for parkland or cash in lieu is the ACRD board of directors has the option. Rather, it's not the option of the applicant. He can request it, but it would ultimately be up to the board.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Okay, moving along. We have DVE 22002 Cobus 6455 Lamarck Road, Beaver Creek, and don't see Alex. So, oh, there he is.
I'm back. Thank you very much. So this is, as Chair McNabb noted, this is a development variance application for property at 6455 Lamarck Road. The variance application is associated with a 3-lot subdivision proposal. It would allow for an increase to the permitted height of the existing accessory building located on the property and resolve an inconsistency in the graduated height allowance in our zoning bylaw that is created by the location of the proposed new lot line. And just to highlight, because the discussion came up at the APC meeting, that there is no new construction that would result from the approval of the variance. It deals with an existing building. The Beaver Creek APC supported the application at their meeting that they held last night. And at this point, planning staff recommend that the board consider the variance and proceed with the neighbor notification process. Thank you.
So one question I have, Alex, is if the design of this shop seems to be something that in the future could be used as a carriage home, would that require some sort of new investigation or new consideration because of the height and proximity?
So the zoning there allows for an accessory dwelling unit. This unit is it's not a dwelling right now in the eyes of our building bylaw and zoning bylaw. They would need to apply for a building permit to convert it into an accessory dwelling unit. But having said that, the variance would legalize the siting of the current building as is. So if the applicants wanted to pursue a conversion of the building or a portion of the building into an accessory dwelling unit, then they could likely do that within the variance.
Yeah, I mean, these things are easy to do when there's nobody sitting at the other lot line, but all the lot lines were one owner. But when they're doing these things, it's kind of like forever. Okay, so I would move the motion. I think that's appropriate, that the Board of Directors consideration and development variance permit DBE 22002, subject to the neighboring properties being notified as per the Local Government Act S 99499. And the seconder? Director Shannon, I see. Okay, and any other questions on this? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Nobody. All that's carried. And moving right down the street on Beaver Creek, RE 21012 Brooks 8865 Beaver Creek Road, Beaver Creek.
Thank you. So this is a rezoning application for a property that's actually located at 6629 Beaver Creek Road. Apologies for the typo on the front page of the agenda there, but the rezoning application of this property would rezone the property to RA2 to facilitate subdivision to a 1 acre minimum lot size. The zoning amendment bylaw received second and third readings at the last board meeting on April 13th, following a public hearing that was held on March 24th. All conditions of rezoning approval have now been satisfied, and staff recommend that the board adopt bylaw P1439. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Any questions? Nope. So I would move that the bylaw P1439 Regional District of Alberni Clayoquot Zoning Atlas Amendment bylaw be adopted. Seconder Director Roberts. Okay, any further questions or comments? All in favor? And that's carried. Hey, now we're going to RF 210414 Coastal Bridge Construction Limited.
Hey, you guys are being way too loud.
Oh,
sorry.
That was coming from the window behind me. And Dodge 3370 Franklin River Road, Cherry Creek. So who's taking this one on?
I'll take this one as well. Thank you. This is a rezoning application on Franklin River Road in the Cherry Creek area, as noted. This application would rezone the subject properties from A3 to A2 to facilitate a subdivision proposal that would create 3 new 5 acre lots plus a remainder lot. The zoning amendment in this case received second and third readings on April 13th, following a public hearing that was held on March 31st. And again, with this one, all conditions of rezoning approval have now been satisfied, and staff recommend that the board adopt bylaw P1440. Thank you.
Go ahead, Dan. You're muted.
I move that bylaw P1440 Regional District of Alberni Clayoquot Zoning Atlas Amendment bylaw be adopted.
And a seconder, Director Cote. So one question I had on this sort of from the beginning is what happens if the city doesn't want to provide water for these? Is there a requirement for, well, I didn't see it.
There is a requirement to provide water at the subdivision stage. The applicants have indicated that they intend to drill a well on each of the lots, and that I don't think that they are looking to pursue connection to the city water system. When they built their house, they investigated that, and it wasn't a feasible option. So they will be looking to proceed with wells, and that is something that is regulated at the subdivision application.
Alrighty. Any other questions on this? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Carried. Moving along. G.
Okay, so I'd be happy to take this one if you like. This is a adjacent property, actually, a rezoning application for the property just to the southeast on Franklin River Road. The application would rezone that property from A3 to A2 to facilitate subdivision of the currently vacant property that is split by Franklin River Road to create up to 7 5-acre lots. The rezoning bylaw for this one, again, received second and third readings at the last meeting, and the applicants have since provided an assessment from a wastewater professional confirming septic capability at the site, and all conditions of rezoning approval have been met. Staff recommendation is for the board to proceed with adoption of bylaw P 1441. Thank you.
Director Bonner.
Thank you. I move that the bylaw P1441, Regional District of Alberni Claycourt Zoning Atlas Amendment Bylaw be adopted.
Seconder. Director Cote. Okay, any questions on this one? All in favor? Anybody opposed? No, carried. Now, the last one, back in Cherry Creek, RF 21016, Dockendorf 6546, Cherry Creek Road, Cherry Creek.
Thank you. Yes, lots of adoptions this meeting. This is an application for the property at 6546 Cherry Creek Road. This application would rezone the 1.7 acre property to RA3 in order to facilitate a 2-lot subdivision proposal. The zoning amendment bylaw, again, with this one, received second and third readings at the April 13th meeting, and all conditions of rezoning approval have now been satisfied. Staff recommend that the board proceed with adoption.
All righty.
Thank you. I move that bylaw P1442, Regional District of Alberni Claycourt Zoning Atlas Amendment Bylaw be adopted.
Seconder. Director Cote. Okay, any questions or comments on that? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Nope, carried. And now, carrying on with electoral areas and Tofino. Zoning bylaw review project. Who's taking that? Mike?
I'll take a crack at that, and then Mike and I would both be happy to answer questions. So thank you very much. We have provided a report to present an updated anticipated timeline for the next steps in the zoning bylaw review project, which will include additional review by the advisory planning commissions and agriculture committees. This report is intended as a follow-up to the project update that was received by the board on April 13th, where direction was given to report back with a new timeline to include additional opportunities for committee review. So in the report we have presented for you, we've included a summary of engagement on the project to date with a list of engagement activities that have taken place since 2019. I also want to acknowledge a significant work that went into the first draft of the updated zoning bylaw prior to the 2019 timeline that we provided for you, which included a couple rounds of public open houses in each electoral area, reviews by the advisory planning commissions, initial engagement with the First Nations, and a legal review. All of that was held prior to the completion of the first draft of the updated zoning bylaw. So a lot of work went into that. We've also in the report presented a list highlighting many of the key improvements to the updated zoning bylaw that planning staff feel will have a positive impact on the region. I'm not going to go over this list in detail, but many of the key themes that are highlighted in the report there include policies that relate to things like housing availability, expanded options for home-based businesses, removing barriers to agriculture, introducing some flexibility in commercial zoning, and then just general improvements to modernize the wording and improve readability of both the zoning text itself and the maps, which we've updated. And then finally, the report presents an updated anticipated timeline for the project and for the board's consideration. The timeline includes a final review by the 6 electoral area APCs and the Agricultural Development and Agricultural Advisory Committees to be conducted over May and June. The draft updated zoning bylaw would be finalized and prepared for the board's consideration on June 22nd within this timeline, and the agency and First First Nation referral process, as well as the public hearings and additional readings required for the 6 OCP amendments, as well as the zoning bylaw would take place over summer and fall, essentially. In the meantime, staff are continuing to have many conversations with the public and compiling all of that public input that we are receiving on the current draft, which is the March 2022 draft. And then just to reiterate, as staff noted at the last meeting, the process associated with the updated zoning bylaw will likely result in a delay in the board's review of individual rezoning applications until the updated zoning bylaw is adopted. As of today's date, this will impact 18 active rezoning applications that are either pending review or awaiting additional information before we proceed with public hearings. So the anticipated timeline is intended to provide an opportunity for staff to communicate expectations to the applicants that we have already and the public. And in the meantime, you know, staff will endeavor to strike a balance with continuing to review current applications, engage with the area APCs on those applications, and then work with applicants on submitting the information that will be required so that we can be in a position to move forward with staff reports and bylaws in a timely manner and quickly if the board proceeds with the project as outlined in the anticipated timeline. So the intent here is to have a transparent timeline that everybody knows that that, you know, if you're making an individual application, what your expectations would be. And I think I'll leave it there. Thank you for the opportunity, and Mike and I are happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, question from the board, Director Cote.
Thank you. Thank you for this. I know it's been a lot of work. There was a lot of public engagement at the last open houses, and a lot of information that I've been receiving over the past year. A lot of it around the docks zoning bylaw that's being proposed, and there has been a bit of a change, but there's still a lot of community comments that are coming forward, and I'd like to know how that fits into the timeline, and if those comments are going to be considered to make any changes. And I know I've talked with Alex about a change regarding the provincial responsibility during this process. I've talked with other communities with waterfront that are waterfront properties, and they just defer to the province. So I know there's been a lot of controversy around that, and I'm just wondering how the comments from the community are going to fit into the timeline, and if there's going to be any more suggested changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cote. Staff are continuing to engage on many conversations with the public about the proposed dock regulation. It is one of the bigger sticking points, I think, in the proposed bylaw, particularly on the proposed dock extent, dock width, and roof structure requirements that we've included in there. So at this point, you know, we're compiling all the information, and we are prepared to prepare options to be discussed with the APCs, and you know, that will look at either additional amendments to the proposed regulations or the possibility of limiting requirements for dock development in the zoning bylaw, such as size and improvements and things like that, and focusing on the development permit guidelines itself that will consider dock materials, how a dock is built, where it's located. Include environmental reviews on a site-specific basis, and then also look at setbacks between docks. So that is something we're working on, and I do anticipate that the APC review will result in some additional changes to the dock regulations, and we'll have to report back to the board on that.
Alrighty, anybody else? I'd just like to say that I realize this is a very long-term project. It's been going on for many years. Unfortunately, the public optics make it look like it's something that started last week, and we decided to do this, and that's the way it's going to go. But the APC input, community input, the staff input is something with a very long trail. And I mean, we've got a bit to go. We hope we get it right, but even at the end of the day, this is a pretty liquid document. And if we put something in that doesn't work, it can be modified in the future. So it's not like we're provincial law or something. So anyhow, we have a motion to, that's a funny motion, to endorse. It's a word I haven't seen in there previously. So I'm not so sure if some rural director wants to endorse this, but maybe. Director Brock.
Yeah, I'd make the recommendation that the board of directors, how about receive and endorse, or just endorse the updated zoning bylaw review project timeline. Thank you.
All righty, the seconder, Director Cote. Any further on this?
Mr. Chair, just if I may, I just want to I want to make sure the timeline we've laid out contemplates having all the 4 Alberni Valley APCs at one meeting, and I just want to make sure that we didn't talk about that, and want to make sure that that's okay. And so that was one thing I wanted to confirm, and I think Director McNabb, your point about the bylaw being fluid, and yes, there is, certainly even once it's adopted, if there's things that aren't workable, they absolutely can be amended and changed. And we do that. This current bylaw has probably been amended 1,000 times, but that is something that is also possible, and I think that's important that we as staff and directors to communicate with the public. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's a big piece in this for communications, and certainly the Beaver Creek APC is very interested in looking at for things that might be of interest and modification, and as we move this forward. So I think we're okay there. Director Cote.
Thank you. I did see that the Valley APCs were to meet together. I have a little bit of a concern about that with Sprout Lake. I think there's going to be a big discussion around the docks, and I don't want to seem like Sprout Lake is going to monopolize the meeting, but I think that they just may. So if you want to have 2 APC meetings and have Sprout Lake doing their own, it might be advisable. But if you think that it can all be done in one meeting with all 4 of the Valley APCs in one meeting, then I'll follow along. Thanks.
Yeah, personally, I think we would be better dividing it up at least in 2, and like Penny says, that the issues at Sprout Lake are substantially different than the issues at Beaver Creek and Beaufort, that's for sure. So we can think about that. Put some time there for that.
So Director McNabb, Chair McNabb, and the reason I highlighted this is it's just because it does affect the timeline, right? It does take, it takes a lot of time just to setting up and organizing and advertising, getting the information out to the Advisory Planning Commission. So I just wanted to clarify this. As staff, we are conscious and certainly always following the direction that the board gives us and want to effectively communicate and do all the engagement we need. But the flip side of that is that we're also conscious and actively trying to manage the good development applications that are coming in. And so, what we've done as staff is try to balance that so that the time frame where we won't be bringing positive recommendations for any rezoning applications while we're going through this phase of the development application, right? So the act requires the board to consider any application that a property owner has, but the act doesn't require the board adopt it. So through this time frame, what staff will do is explain that to anybody who's waiting for an application or comes in and applies. So our recommendation, if somebody says, I want my development application heard before the board right now, our recommendation is going to be that the application be denied, or wait until the end of the application. It's one of the quirks of the Local Government Act and how we have to do this. So we're trying to keep that that time frame as short as possible, recognizing we've got 18 applications that are out there right now. So I guess my question to the board is it more important to keep that time frame a little bit shorter, or is it more important to have the individual advisory planning commission input? I mean, as staff, we can facilitate one larger meeting. It's one meeting. It may take a little bit longer. I think there's a lot of benefits to the APCs in the Alberni Valley hearing what other APCs have to say. But ultimately, the APCs are providing recommendations to you as individual directors and to the board as a whole. It's not for staff. So this one is up to you. And I would ask that we get some clear direction now, so that we can make any adjustments to the timeline if needed. And I also wanted to just fully explain again the rationale, for why staff are doing this and some of the concerns we have and what we're trying to balance out.
Well, my suggestion
how we
on
do with
that
applications.
basis is I've had 3 APC meetings in the last 2 months, at least 3. And why don't we just tag this on to our general APC meetings, a discussion with regards to this over the next while. And then at the end of those individual APC discussions, we have a general APC meeting that we can bring forward the inter-areal opinions. I mean, that doesn't take, we had a bit of a discussion last night in our APC with regards to it. And I think if staff provides some input and direction with regards to it at a regular APC meeting, that I know we've got tons of them coming up, that may be a way to consider it separately and combined way. We've got Director Shannon with her hand up here.
Thank you. I really appreciate all the work that has gone into this from staff and appreciate the importance of the timeline. I'm just going to comment. Well, you gotta wait a minute. Nope. On Director McNabb's comment about tagging it onto the next APC meeting, I just had the first APC meeting, I want to say, for Beaufort since this board's been elected. So I feel like that might be great for the other areas, but I still think it might be, that would have to be a special one for Beaufort. I know that when we talked last week, I had said that, because there was questions coming up that were pretty specific to rural areas in Beaufort regarding, because when we had a quick discussion about the draft zoning bylaw, and I agree that if you kind of start getting into things, it could take a long time, especially when we were talking about agriculture stuff, especially in my area, versus what Director Cote is saying about docks for Sprout Lake. I guess my question is, I'm supportive of if we want to entertain maybe Sprout Lake as separate, and then if Beaver Creek, Beaufort, and Cherry Creek are more aligned with the properties, if that would not hinder the timeline. And then my other question was, are staff planning on doing it via Zoom or try and get together in person for this, just for discussion purposes? Thank you.
So I guess the last question first, it's really going to depend on what's going on, right? So if it was like within 2 weeks, we would probably be recommending, we'd be doing it by Zoom, just because that's the reality of what we're dealing with today. I mean, we always hope that we would have something in person if possible, or if it's in the boardroom, we can do a combination, we can do a hybrid combination. So don't have the answer for that. And again, with respect to how we split this up, I think that I really want to leave that to the directors. I just wanted to explain the timeline. This is as staff, we make the recommendations to the board. This ultimately has to be adopted by the board. The legislation, it's set out very specifically about that. And I just want the board to be aware of all of the factors that as staff we're aware of. And that have gone into our recommendations and our reports and why. that's what I wanted to explain. I do think that, you know, if the board, as a board, if you're comfortable with Sprout Lake having a separate meeting and the other three, that would be fine. But if we're going to start to split into some individual APC meetings more than what we've suggested, then we should just do all of them, right? I want each director, each area, you know, to feel like they're being treated the same as well. So, you know, it's ultimately, you know, up to the board. I just want to be aware, everyone to be aware of the timeline, and we are, you know, pushing this up into election season. That's is just where it's at. So we want all of those things to be the board to consider all those things.
Well, I think we've got a pretty good sense of what we need to do. We just need to get it together. So we have got a motion on the floor that the board endorses the updated zoning bylaw review for project timeline. So any other questions on that? All righty, all in favor?
Question. Sure.
Oops, sorry, we got a question. Sorry, was that a question? I thought you were voting. Sorry.
No, I'm just asking, if we endorse this and adopt it, then we're going with what is being recommended, when we're actually wanting to increase the amount of time, I guess, by adding individual APC meetings.
No, my suggestion is that we don't have individual APC meetings, that we do them at regular APC meetings, but this is 3 months, 4 months down the line, so hopefully we can get some kind of a blend of this. If we had individual discussions at our APC meetings, the general meeting would take a lot less discussion.
The problem being that Beaufort doesn't have, may not have a scheduled meeting, so.
Oh, maybe they need one.
Right.
We'll send them one of our applicants. And they can deal with that.
So asking staff, how do we deal with this?
Okay, all right. Good. Go ahead, Dan.
I believe my understanding where the conversations left off is that our planning staff are going to connect with individual directors to gain clarity, and then a schedule, whether amended or original as per presented, is going to come out based on the timing of APCs. They could be together, they could be split into 4, and that would be the only variable that would influence the schedule. No, I wouldn't defer it. I would just, so long as we understand that that is the one element that can vary the timelines, would be whether the APCs are together, whether they're split into 2, or whether they're 4 individuals.
Sure. That's what I said. Okay, carrying on, like we knew what we were doing. But did you have a comment? Yes, Director Roberts has a comment.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I understand it. I believe the way that we discussed it, and that was that, for example, the West Coast was going to have its own APC meeting, and I would say Bamfield as well, and then there would be 3 APC meetings here and an additional one for Sprout Lake. And I'm looking at the timeline and the estimated hours, so it's 850 hours at present. What's your recommendation, or how much more time would be, you know, would you advise? Thanks. That would be either Alex or
Sure, thank you. So the you know, if we were to hold individual APC meetings, it would involve 6 individual meetings, and I expect that we could handle that over May and June, and then push the consideration of the updated zoning bylaw for first reading back into the July meeting, which is held at the end of July. So that will affect the agency referral process moving forward, and might affect the public hearing date. But that allows us more opportunity to have those individual conversations with the APCs, and then combine all of that input, and then compile it into the final draft, which could essentially be presented to the board in July.
Okay, so we got this pasted yet? Oh, sorry. Director, trying to get your hand up? We're just swatting away a kid.
Both. No, I just wanted to I mean, after this discussion, ideally, I think that it'd be nice to sit down per APC. I think you just get better discussion that way pertaining to each area. And because it's the draft zoning, we're not necessarily going by area for restrictions and stuff. It's by lot size, and 1 acre in Beaufort could have a lot different implications than 1 acre in Sprout Lake for what that land use might look like. But at the same time, I really hear that the staff end of it, of if you're applying for stuff, you don't want the timeline to go farther because of the frustration of that. So, I mean, and I know that there is a planned meeting, joint meeting for both the agriculture committees to have another crack at this, because in our last ADC meeting, more questions came out after the March draft. So I'm really happy that we're going to be talking at those combined committees, where I would imagine a lot of concerns that I've been hearing from constituents might come out of that meeting. So I mean, I'm okay with if we're at combining the Alberni Valley and just understanding that, yes, it might be a longer meeting because the other agriculture ones are happening together. Because that's where a lot of concerns are coming from that I'm hearing from property owners out here. Concerns or comments, I should say.
Okay, Director Cote.
Thank you. These are open meetings too, aren't they? So the public can be there, either in present or watching Zoom. Just have to remember that.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor. So let's carry on with that, and it can be interpreted the way it wants to be when it's down to the staff level. Alrighty, on the motion, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. So now we have reports, staff reports. Meeting schedule May 22. I was just looking at that one because this Maplehurst Parkland looks like it's on a board meeting day. Unless my calendar wrong here.
Yes, it is.
That's an interesting time on a board meeting day. Sheriff Jack will have to scoot us through that meeting. Okay, we got the building report, the monthly agreement and grant delegation report, and the report for information West Coast Transit implementation delay. So I don't know who wants to handle this stuff. We have to pull this out, but it looks like we might. So you're gonna walk us through that, or? Jenny?
I am so sorry. I was just writing a report and I missed what was said.
So I think we're mostly interested in the monthly agreement and grant delegation report and the report for the West Coast Transit implementation delay report.
I can definitely speak to the West Coast Transit implementation delay. We had BC Transit come to the last West Coast Committee meeting and provide a presentation on the situation that they're having at BC Transit. Their financial plan, which was, so basically their annual budget was provided in February. And in that, they've been given the mandate to do no expansions for this calendar year. And that unfortunately has a big impact on the West Coast Transit system because this is a new system, so it would have been considered an expansion plan. We had been notified by them some time ago that due to procurement issues, we were likely going to have to delay. And so we were looking at a September launch date for this year. But based on their notification, we're looking at a further delay because we need to look at what next year's budget is. So the province has to basically approve for expansion of systems again. the BC Transit staff have expressed that this is the highest priority project for them when it comes to new systems and expansion. So as soon as that money is available and approved by the province, then they'll be able to come to the table with their share of the funding. It's still good that we're moving forward with the bus stop planning and infrastructure, because it demonstrates that we are absolutely committed to our share for the service, but it does create a delay. So our plans are to continue moving forward with this project, but understanding that it is getting delayed further. In September, we're looking to do a service plan update. So that will take into consideration this new information, review the fare fees, and basically update the plan based on that information.
Okay, any questions with regards to those? Yes, go ahead, Director Roberts.
So through the chair to Jenny, yes, the way I feel about this right now is that, it's going to be kept being delayed until probably 24, 25. Very disappointing. I know the rest of the West Coast directors are concerned about this as well. What portion or what part of BC Transit do they play in establishing the bus stops, the facilities, and so on and so forth? Or is it all on our staff to deal with this at this point?
Through the chair, infrastructure, transit infrastructure is the local government responsibility. Operation is shared through both provincial and local government share.
Well, thank you for that. Again, I just, disappointment is, I think, pretty outstanding. I don't know if any of the other West Coast directors have any issues on that or can say anything to it. Thank you.
Okay, anything else there? No motion to receive the staff reports? Director Cote and Director Beckett. All in favor, receipt? And opposed? All righty, moving on. Committee reports. North Island 911, we haven't had a meeting here recently, but I can report to you that I did sign the agreement with Peace River area with regards to a dispatch, fire dispatch. And so that's a good thing for the general community of North Island 911. It is income that offsets some of the expenses. So now the new Peace River one will align with the Cowichan one, which was a higher fee than previous. So that's a positive thing. And the Vancouver Island Regional Library, Director Cote.
Thank you. So good news. The strike is over. Library service continues, and we're looking at doing our strategic plan this year. So that'll be coming, and there might be questionnaire or something coming to the regional district, which would be good. Thank you.
Okay, Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce, Mayor Minions is not here, and I didn't get asked to attend the meeting, so I guess we don't have a report for that unless you came with one in your pocket. Director Solda. Air Quality Council, Director Bodner.
Thank you. There has been no wood stove exchange requests, and according to the WSEP parameters, starting in 2023, they will no longer be accepting propane and natural gas heating options. And this is and this change is, and the reason for that is because the and natural gas, because they burn fossil fuels and therefore there are carbon emissions. This change is in line with BC's climate commitments and new policies. The final report from the wildfire smoke communication workshop that was done. There's a lot of information there, and I have sent the information to Heather Thompson, and hopefully that she will send that out to all the directors. Anna is stepping down as chair, so please spread the word and direct suitable candidates to Anna. Catalyst received a second grant from Clean Air BC for update existing equipment to improve burning. And that's it.
Alrighty, West Coast Aquatic Board, Dr. Steer.
Yes, thank you. No meeting, so no report.
Thank you very much. AVICC, Dr. Cote.
We had a successful convention. There's no new news to report out yet. I know that we have a new executive, so I am your new president. So that's all for today.
Beaver Creek Water Advisory Committee. Sorry.
Sorry, I just want to say congratulations. It's been a long time since Port Alberni has had a representative as chair of the AVICC, and I just want to congratulate you, Penny. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we just need to keep her busy. Beaver Creek Water Advisory, the only thing I have to say is that our latest project is underway, $890,000 or so. Thank you to Jenny for that. And the next one is the Sawakin Forestry group, which I attended a meeting the other day on, and discussions included an old growth summit, which is happening at Anaca this week on Thursday. Director Jack may want to comment on that further. The old growth study, which was interesting, that shows that 37%, I believe, of the product available in TFL 44 is old growth, and that only 12% of it is actually loggable old growth. So the idea that 1% of the old growth exists and when it's gone is not really quite factual. The other issue that they kind of brought up, or new advancement, is the use of drone deployment within TFL 44. It's kind of interesting, some of the things that they can do with the drones, and some of the areas that they can get into that they couldn't before, and identifying loggable, non-loggable areas, and improving productivity. And there's now a Sawakin Tall Tree Protection Plan, which was not in place before. The Big Tree Protection Plan was in place, but now they have a designated tall tree protection, which is going to eliminate logging of, I believe it was 40-meter tree, I think, is where it starts. So anyhow, that was about it. And next one is, Director Jack, did you want to comment on that, of the summit? It's rather interesting.
Yeah, just quickly. So the summit will be being held tomorrow. It kicks off at 10 a.m. It starts earlier than that for anyone able to come physically for any tours of the territory. So that's already kind of being dealt with. Although if you can't make it physically tomorrow, it is being live broadcast over YouTube. So you'll be able to get to it through the Huu-ay-aht website, as well as just looking at Huu-ay-aht HFN Communications on YouTube. I think the link has already gone out to our staff, or through our staff. We have a few staff members who will be attending for us, and I'll be there, obviously. I don't want to spoil anything other than what Director McNabb has already reported from the Sawakin update. We really need to get the word out there that this situation with forestry and old growth is not as dire as what people are saying it is, at least in the experience of TFL 44 and our forestry. And we're finding that this is similar across other First Nations. So other First Nations will be in attendance as well. This is meant to be an old growth conversation about not just coastal forestry, hopefully, but also what's going on in other places as well. So it'll be worth keeping on in the background if you're doing other things, but you should be worthwhile. Thanks.
Oh, Director Steer, sorry.
Yeah, Director Jack, do you know if it will, I know it's going to be live streamed on YouTube. Will it be recorded as well? I'm in CAO recruitment meeting all day tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. So anything broadcast on YouTube will be automatically saved into like once it ends, there may be some rendering time that'll take YouTube to do it before they upload it onto the server, but you'll be able to get it there. And we plan on cutting out certain pieces and snipping them together as like topical conversations, depending on how things go with the panelists and so on and so forth. So there may be further content coming out that way as well.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Agricultural Development Committee Director Shannon. Sorry.
Thank you. We had our last meeting on April 12th. I would say one of the highlights out of that meeting was we had Angela Boss. She is a regional agrologist, attend our meeting to speak specifically about the avian bird flu that's coming across Canada. Essentially just to give producers kind of a networking of giving them a heads up of regulation changes, some things that the province is putting in to try and rein this in. Like, hey, you guys, back in the playroom. Sorry. And just kind of give everybody a heads up of what to look for if you have poultry and things like that. One of the other highlights that we did talk about was the zoning bylaw updates that had just come out in March. There was a lot of support and happy to see agritourism and agritourism accommodation kind of easement coming from the regional district just to help producers if they choose to have some diversification for income on the farm, that they can now do that. And then there's a number of grants coming in, which is great. The armyworm monitoring program is going to happen again this year. They thought that it might have ended last year, but there is funding for this year as well. And unless anybody has any questions, I think that's about it. We continually talk about insurance issues, and I think the committee, there was a miscommunication about getting resolutions into AVICC because they had talked a little bit late about possibly putting a resolution into UBCM regarding the issues of insurance still for agriculture. We did have a meeting with Minister Osborne in January or February, and we're going to recap that again in the summertime. But I believe our ag support workers were going to possibly talk to staff about if there was an opportunity or interest in trying to get a resolution straight from us potentially to UBCM. Thanks.
Okay, any questions on that? And the next one is Redfish Restoration Society, Director Roberts.
Yeah, thank you for that. So for those of you who don't recall, that Redfish Restoration Society was formerly the Central West Coast Forest Society. I'm happy to report that the provincial government has stepped up to the plate through the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change strategy to continue watershed restoration in the Clayoquot Sound. In fact, the society just received $1.5 million to continue this worthwhile restoration project. We also have a big grant from BC Salmon Restoration and Innovation Fund. And the society will be working in partnership with Tloquit, the Hauset, Pesquit First Nations in the Clayoquot Sound and Toquot Nation in Barkley Sound. We're currently working on quite a few projects, which include the Esquit Harbor watershed, the Trunco Creek watershed, the Kennedy River side channel, Atleo River watershed, Bedwell River watershed, Cyper River watershed, Barkley Sound, Kelp, and the Kennedy Flats cleanup. So it's really, really important that we support them. And just in general terms, for everybody, if you're out on the West Coast on May 28th, we'll be having a Kennedy Lake Backroads cleanup, which we do on an annual basis, and starts at 10 a.m. at the junction. We'll meet, and the society will be posting putting out circulating a poster pretty soon. And funding for this event comes directly from the ACRD. They received an ACRD grant and aid to help with the interpreter booths. And our team is working hard to get the curriculum together for the summer ahead, which is going to be busy, very, very busy. So if you are out that way, also the annual West Coast Triple Plank is happening this coming weekend at Mount Washington and Tofino. And the event is organized by Marie France Roy, and all proceeds go to Redfish. If you're in Tofino on Saturday or Sunday, please stop by Cox Bay, the skate park, or join the volunteer day at Wickaninnish School. So great job done by staff at Redfish, and we're really working on doing some terrific projects on the West Coast. And that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, any other reports that came out of the mail? Director Cote.
Sorry, I should have said earlier, but there's a UBCM report. Community Excellence Awards application form for 2022 came out. The categories are excellence in governance, excellence in service delivery, excellence in asset management, and excellence in sustainability. And that is good for local governments or First Nations. The deadline is May 20th. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Somebody move the receipt of the reports. Director Robertson, Director Solda. Any other comments? All in favor? Carried. So do we have any other unfinished business? Wendy, are you with us?
I am, Mr. Chair. So we do, there was no submissions received but to the email address, but we do have an attendee. So if the attendee had any questions, they would need to put it in the Q&A now. If you have any questions for the board.
All righty. So while we're waiting for that, we have late business, which we don't have any that I know of. And then we're moving to question period. So participating in person in the boardroom, we have nobody, and participating in Zoom, we might have somebody.
And it doesn't look like there's any questions from the attendee, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so I think we should maybe take a, how many minutes? 5-minute recess for a bio break, and we'll get back to work. And so do we have to have a motion for recess? Okay. Okay, so before we recess, we will be going in camera after we come back from recess. So I will read the reasons for going in camera. So I would move to close the meeting to the public as per Community Charter sections 901A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or an agent of the regional district or another position appointed by the regional district, and 2902B, in consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the regional district and the provincial government or the federal government or both, or between a provincial government or federal government or both and a third party. So I seek a seconder for that motion. Director Roberts, all in favor of that motion? Anybody opposed? So that's good. And so we'll go for a 5-minute recess. We will return and we will be in camera on returning.